Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second Moody Talk on guilt. I chose guilt for the month of December because, it's not an emotion that a lot of people think about during the holidays, during the season, right? People think more about being jolly and happy and, rah rah all the time when it comes to the holidays. You got the Christmas music going, you got the Christmas decorations going, the holiday shopping. You've got all of these things that are piling up that are all about cheer, good cheer, and jolly holly, whatever, right? And that's great. That's great if people are feeling in that mood, right? But we have so many different types of grief, which I'm going to go through. One of the ones that I really think is important around the month of December is when people have guilt over their depression. Okay. So I'm going to go through a few different types of guilt first, and then we'll get into the holiday depression guilt, okay? Because that's a little multifaceted in itself. So what kinds of guilt do we have? So many out there, right? There is parental. There is spousal or partner. There is family in general, being a sibling or being a child of a parent. There's also guilt around things that have happened in our lives. Maybe we have survivor's guilt. Maybe we have guilt over making a decision such as getting a divorce, something like that. So lots of different types of guilt. What are some of the most common ones? Well, let's see. So there's parental guilt. I think a lot of people who are parents can definitely understand that feeling of parental guilt. We talked about guilt last week and what is the definition of guilt. Guilt is when you go against your own morals and values. You make a decision that is against what you truly believe is right, what your values are. Okay? So that's guilt. But we all tend to feel guilt that is not justified, right? And that's something that we cannot control. And that's a lot of that is parental guilt because maybe at some point we weren't able to give our child something that they wanted or needed in that time, right? Or we get guilt about saying no to our children. But the one of the most important reminders of non-justified guilt is you are allowed to say no. You are always allowed to say no and put up a boundary. But it doesn't often mean that we don't carry guilt over making that decision, right? So there's parental guilt. There's partner guilt, right? Where you feel as though you're not giving as much, or you just don't have it in you to be able to give as much to your partner as you've been able to in the past, or you just aren't able to during a time where they feel that they need that. And so we sometimes feel guilt that we haven't been able to give enough of ourselves to others. Is it justified? Probably not. It's probably not justified at all, but we feel it anyway, right? And let's see, there's also survivor's guilt. So survivor guilt is a tricky one because there's that feeling of why did I survive over someone else? Maybe you were in a car accident and someone passed, or they got really, really hurt and now they have to live a different life because of it. Now, you could feel guilt if it was something that you chose to go against your values, something that you knew was not in your range of, what you feel is right. Maybe the accident was caused by something and you feel guilt because of that, maybe drinking, something like that. But, more often than not, survivors feel guilt because they survived over someone else. And is it justified? Again, probably not, but we still have those feelings. So let's get into the one that I think is really important for this time of year. So it's when someone has a depression, who's in a depression during the holidays. This can be hard on everyone that's in that sphere, right? It can be hard for the person who has depression. It can be hard for the loved ones around them that want to see their loved one happy and in the spirit of the season. Maybe children whose parent is in a depression and they feel badly that the parents aren't, doing as many holiday things as the child wants to. So there's so many different ways that people can feel that, pain of depression during the holidays. And people who are depressed tend to feel a lot of guilt during this time of year because they just can't bring themselves to do the all the things, all the season things, or that they're not giving themselves 100% because they're in such a depression that they can't give 100% of themselves to this entire idea of, everybody be happy. Let's all be singing carols and, kissing under the mistletoe and putting up our holiday decorations. And, a lot of people who are in depression, they do those things, but they do it with a mask. And that is where all this guilt comes in, is that they feel as though they're not giving enough and that their depression is causing others to not feel as much joy as they want to. And I have a podcast. I started a podcast in the fall, and I decided to do a crossover this week, actually. So if you're watching this in real time, I also have my podcast, When Not Yet Becomes Right Now. I did a solo episode about holiday guilt, just to, talk more about it, because I think people don't understand when their loved ones or people that they know are not happy during this time of year, that there are reasons. There are reasons for depression. There's health. You're depressed about your health or someone you love's health. That you're missing loved ones. So you're depressed that you're maybe not with someone that you want to be with. You can't be with them, or you've lost someone to a death over, in the past few weeks or months, or it could even be years. You're just missing that person, and it doesn't feel like the holidays without them. So this guilt that people who are depressed feel in this season can, like I said, affect many more. And wanted to do this particular, what kinds of guilt people feel, because I think it's important that you recognize that there is this, guilt inside of you for having depression, that you feel as though maybe it's too much for others as well as too much for you. And it just gets bigger and heavier when we feel as though we don't have a right to not be in the holiday spirit. Right? I was talking with my therapist, and we were talking about the holidays, remembering the holidays when I was a child. I don't remember any of them. I don't have memories from, being a kid and Christmas. And it's because of the abuse that I grew up in. So every year I go through the same thing. Like, I try to be as holly jolly as I can. And, many times it's that I'm forcing it so that others can feel like they can celebrate along with me. But if you do have depression and you are feeling guilt, that's natural and it's understandable. And as I always say in every one of my talks, we have to give ourselves grace in this time, right? We need to allow ourselves to be who we are in the moment. If we don't feel as though we are able to do all of the seasonal things that everyone wants us to do, that's okay. We can say no and put up a boundary. right? And that may also bring on guilt, but it's not justified guilt. Go back to the first Moody talk, talking about justified and unjustified. Doesn't really matter when you're in it and you're feeling that guilt, if it's justified or not, but we have to remember that we can't be everything for everyone, especially when we're feeling low, right? And to those who aren't feeling that depression guilt during the holidays, who aren't depressed and are enjoying the holidays, happy holidays to you. That's wonderful. But I would love for you to, if you do recognize someone in your sphere is having a hard time over the holidays, that you give them, just a little something about, yeah, I know it's not so great right now, and that's okay. You celebrate the way that you feel most comfortable celebrating, and I think that would really help a lot of my fellow depressed holiday people. So, giving grace to yourself if you are feeling depressed, and giving grace to others if you see that they are depressed. So I hope that helps. We'll be back next week with another Moody Talk on Guilt. Have a great rest of your day.